Sophia. Oh, we miss you too, Ustada Aisha.
I think, you know, because we've been doing teaching other classes as well, we've met so many more students as well,
100%.
like students that I hadn't like met in madrasa at the same time.
Yeah.
So like I know Hussein is on here. I've probably seen him around in madrasa, but never had a chance to kind of speak to him.
Yeah. I think it's definitely a good experience. Like I teach kids from Ibn Battuta now, Evelyn Cobbold, and it's nice to get to know some of the other children as well. It's lovely.
And so the other day I was teaching some Abdullah Quilliam boys, and I remember when they were so much younger, like when they were in our class even.
Yeah, exactly.
And we even reached up to Abdullah William Quilliam, so it's really nice.
It is.
And even just to see like their progress over the years.
Exactly, yeah, because I teach a couple of girls in Evelyn Cobbold who I taught when I was teaching in Shanghai, and now they've moved up, and it's like, wow, it's lovely. It's so nice to see.
Yeah, inshallah. How are you finding online teaching?
It's different, but you know what? I feel like after the first couple of weeks, once you get used to it, it's like second nature now. Like now I can't even remember how we used to do it back when we were actually in FEP. So no, it was like you had to adapt to it a little bit, but now we're in the routine. It's absolutely fine, honestly. What about you?
Yeah, it's all right. I think even at the beginning as well, when we were all getting started, there was like technical problems, and even like me not knowing how to use Zoom properly. It was strange. So like sometimes it would shut off or connection wise and things like that. And it was like not being able to engage with the students as well, but it's fine now.
Exactly.
It's nice. Yeah, and I remember saying that students who sometimes are a little bit shy in person, when it comes to online, they really like blossomed, like very well. So it's nice.
It's nice.
I'm enjoying it. How like we've got Fiza, Ibrahim, Hussein. How are you all finding FEP online? Ustad, how's FEP online going as well, like since the beginning?
Yeah, walaikum salam. Sorry, I was just doing all the tech stuff behind the scenes. So alhamdulillah, we are live on YouTube. So in regards to your question, I think it's going well. Although our madrasa is not really made for the online world, I think, but I think we were able to adapt pretty well and pretty quick, alhamdulillah. Especially with our staff and all the hard work that you are doing. And sometimes it's not, I mean, if someone asked me 3-4 months ago to do a live session, I would always say no, because it's just, it feels different. Other people excel in it, but I think with our madrasa, all the teachers, they kind of, you know, even though it's difficult to be on to teach some people on a screen, but our teachers went beyond that, like yourselves, and were teaching many students. So that's brilliant. We have about 150 classes that go on a week.
Wow.
Yeah. So that includes all the, the Tajweed classes.
Yeah.
So on Saturday and Sunday, we have up to like 10 classes at one time going on every half an hour.
Oh, mashallah.
Yeah. So it was tough at the beginning, and especially when it came to Zoom, for instance, where because they were expanding so much at the beginning of the lockdown, they were not responding to our help requests or anything like that. So we were left on our own as well. So that was a slight challenge at the beginning, but I think now we've slightly kind of got into it. 3 days ago, we had an issue with going live, and then I sent them a call for help, and they responded. So I think they've adjusted as well. Yeah. So that's good signs, alhamdulillah. Yeah. But yeah, so that's where we're at the moment. On YouTube, we have the Philosopher MMA. I don't know if you know the Philosopher MMA. He joins us from India for every lesson, alhamdulillah. He especially for our science and Islam lessons. And then we have Dr. Yahya saying Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. So wa alaikum assalam. So we are ready to start, I think, or should we give it another 30 seconds just to allow people to come in? We have about just over 15 students on YouTube, and the rest, we have about 7-8 of us here on Zoom, inshallah. So yeah. Hussein is saying that he joins with all the sessions, which is fantastic. Yep, Hussein is literally there almost every lesson. We also have Fiz Ibrahim who are there, so that's Fizza and Ibrahim. We have Zahra there as well. I think it's Safiya saying, yes, wow, Ustada Hajra is amazing. She forgot to write Ustada. I think and also we need to have the H with a capital H. Is an amazing teacher. Well done, everyone. I can't wait to start this lesson. Okay, so I think what we'll do, we'll listen to Sophia and we will put her out of her misery and we'll start the lesson. Now, as we normally do before starting the lesson, for those students who are at Fatima Elizabeth Frontistery, but they are maybe not in your class, or we have many other students who are joining us from various parts of the country, various parts of the world, just to familiarize them with who we are talking to and what this is about. So I'm going to start with a quick introduction, and then we'll ask you questions, and then we'll start the session. So quick introduction is, so today, alhamdulillah, as I've mentioned out on some of the groups as well, I'm really excited about today's lesson in particular because both our teachers are from Fatima Elizabeth Frontistery, just as last week where we had Ustada Hafsa, who's also from our madrasa. But what makes this quite interesting is Ustada Aisha and Ustada Hajra, both of them have also qualified under the Alamiya program. So what that means is they've completed the Alamiya or Dars Nizami studies. So they are like, they are alimas. So that's one thing. But not only that, both of them also hold their BSc in optometry. Now, I'm not going to tell you more about that. They will tell you more about that. But so both of them, they both teach in the same class. They both are alimas, and they both also are graduates in optometry, and they are pursuing careers as in opticians. Now, what's interesting is every time I go to their class, I always tell the students that if you have problem with your glasses, bring them to your classes. So that's what happens with this. Have any of them done that yet, Usada Aisha and Usada Hajra?
I don't think the kids in our class.
We had one student who broke it at lunchtime.
Yeah.
And he brought it in after lunch, and he was like, "Can you fix it for me?" But I think it was broken so much where we were like, "I think you've got to take it back to Specsavers to have it fixed." So unfortunately, it wasn't something we could have done. Yeah. But other than that, not really. I don't.
So a student actually recognized that you could fix glasses at the madrasa.
Yeah. Okay. We like bring our equipment and tools in with us to madrasa.
I think that should be the case, and that would avoid the students going back to the Specsavers and maybe help out with the lockdown and everything else. So that's key. So that's for me. That's what kind of reminds me of, when we had ulama. Back in the days where they were not just ulama in terms of fiqh and being, exegetes, they also had under their belts various different sciences as well. So you'd have, so even algebra, for instance, when you do algebra, Al-Khawarizmi, he started this process of algebra. He wasn't just a mathematician, he was an alim as well. Right, he was faqih as well. So all these different things that people were back in the day. So alhamdulillah, that's for me. That's I always feel proud to say that we have teachers who are not just alims and alimas, but they also have their own professions during the weekdays. And I think that's the way forward, especially in our country. And I hope people can agree with that as well. And also midway, because it's to do with the eyes, and we have optometrists, I always find it hard to pronounce. You can always ask questions about the eyes if that's okay as well. So if anyone has any problems with their eyes, and that can be both the spiritual eyes and the that's the physical eyes and the metaphysical eyes. So that's both of them there, if that's okay. Do you both feel confident in both those territories?
Yeah, we can give it a go.
Okay, fantastic. Okay, so inshallah, let's begin firstly, I think with and we'll go in alphabetical order. So Ustada Aisha is there, and then Ustada Hajra. So Ustada Aisha, I want to ask, what made you get into the Alimiya program? What made you become an alima? And then same question for Ustada Hajra, and you can have a little discussion amongst yourselves if you want.
Yeah, no, for sure. So I think our story is kind of linked and kind of connected in a way. So me and Ustada Hajra have kind of grown up together since we were young. So we've known each other for a very long time. And we both used to attend the same maktab madrasa together as well in the area that we live in.
Can you tell us which maktab it was if you want to?
It was Leytonstone
Okay.
Madrasa Maktab, very local to us where we live. So we were attending madrasa at the time, and it wasn't as common for people in the maktab that we were attending to kind of go into the Alimiya program. So even personally, myself, my older sister, we were in the class together in maktab madrasa. And I think the plan had always been you kind of leave madrasa when you're about 14, 15, learn everything, and then end up kind of pursuing university, college, etc. So what had happened was one day, I think we were about 12 or 13 at the time, Ustada Hajra ended up coming to madrasa one day. And I think I don't want to give too much of a story away, But she kind of basically was like, I'm leaving madrasa tomorrow. So, we were all like, what do you mean? Like, where are you going? And she said, I'm enrolling onto the Alimiya program. And I think because, we were all very good friends at the time, and there were quite a few of us, it kind of prompted us to leave madrasa and join with her as well. So that's exactly what happened. So the very next day, we all left madrasa very abruptly.
Oh, wow.
We all left.
So how many of you were there that left?
I think there were about 4 or 5 of us.
4 or 5, yeah.
Yeah, 4 or 5 girls in the class at the same time.
Oh, wow.
And through Ustada Hajra's just joining madrasa and just telling us, we all just ended up leaving. And the next day we enrolled into another local madrasa in Walthamstow. And yeah, it was from then that our journey started. And honestly, I know I've never said this to Ustada Hajra as much, but because of her, subhanallah, 4 or 5 of us ended up leaving madrasa. We all finished madrasa as well. We all completed the 7-year program. And if it wasn't for her, we wouldn't have had the opportunity to even join, or the idea to even join. So alhamdulillah, she was kind of the opening for us to start madrasa. And then, yeah, so we completed the 7 years together. Of course, we had many bumps along the way. Some of us took breaks for a year or so, came back, that kind of stuff. Because it was a part-time madrasa, so we were still going to school and college and university in the morning, and then in the evening.
So that's an interesting point that you mentioned. That's part-time Dar Ulum or part-time madrasa, whatever you want to call it. So there's two things there. So first of all, if you'd like to tell us the name of that Dar Ulum and also where it's based, and secondly, just the point that you used to go to school during the day, or college, or university, wherever you were going at the time, and you were attending how many hours of Darul Ulum during the evening. So if you could let us know those two things, and then I'm going to ask Ustada Hajra why she went, because remember she's the one who came back one day and said, I'm leaving, right? And so what made that happen? So if you can answer those questions, and then we can move on to Ustada Hajra.
Yeah, sure. So the madrasa is called Madrasa Al Zahra. It's in Walthamstow. So it was a course where we learn Arabic, but it was an Urdu-based madrasa. So we actually studied the Alimiya program in not English, but in Urdu, which was very new to us as well, because we weren't familiar with the language. And the second question was, how many hours? Yeah. So in the first, I think 2 or 3 years, it was 2 hours every evening, so 5 to 7 p.m. And then I think when we got to about 4th year, it was 5 to 8, as well as Saturday classes, Saturday morning 9 to 12, and then the occasional Sunday classes as well. And that was for about 3 years. So started off a little bit easier, but then over the years, as the workload increased and the kitabs and the books that we were studying kind of got a little bit more heavy, the number of hours we were in madrasa also increased.
Wow. So let me just get this right for our students who are listening. And just the fact that you were going from, say, morning 8 o'clock to school or college or university every day, 8 o'clock, all the way till around 3, 4, and then you're coming back home and your class starts at 5 o'clock, right?
Yeah.
So then you only had like an hour or so in between your two classes, more or less.
Yeah. So when we were in school, that was the case. So we would, go to school, start 8:30, be home by 4, and then be in madrasa by 5. But when I got to college, college would finish at 4:30. Yeah. So it was kind of leaving in the morning at 8 o'clock and then going college, finishing at 4:30, and then going straight to madrasa. So we weren't able to go home. And I remember even in university, I remember there were days where me and Ustada Hajra, we would finish uni at 4. And there was one bus that would take us straight from university to madrasa. It was a 1-hour bus ride. So we'd quickly rush at 4 o'clock, finish our lecture. Some days we'd be
So how would you eat in between all of that?
On the bus.
On the bus, right.
In madrasa, alhamdulillah, they were super accommodating to us as well. Because a lot of the girls were coming from school, college, madrasa. They would kind of allow us a little bit of time to just kind of pray, eat, freshen up before the class started. They even like installed a kitchen for us. So it was very nice where, like make a cup of tea.
Yeah, alhamdulillah, that sounds very encouraging. And Zahra is saying, and what did you eat, with about 10 question marks?
Whatever we could get our hands on. Yeah, it was a lot of tea and biscuits a lot of the time because we had the little kitchen. Anything we could pick up on the way. So it wasn't sort of proper meals that we could sit down and eat. It was a lot of food that we could eat while we were traveling, or just something that we could have very quickly.
That's fantastic. So these are some of the struggles. So maybe after about 100 years, people will write books on the alimat of the 21st century and the struggles they went through, that they had to live off biscuits. You hear the struggles of the elders of back home, that they had to live off, I don't know, only bits of food. Some of them even ate leaves because there wasn't enough food. Here we can say there was so much food, but even then time was so much of a challenge that we could only live off a few biscuits at a time. Fantastic. Okay, so just to mention a few things from YouTube, we have Saj, who just lives across the road from me. So if I throw a ball, it'd probably end up in his house, possibly, I think. So Saj is saying, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. This is encouraging to know for my daughters. And I think this is fantastic. This is what it's about. That how do we get the best of both worlds? So I think this is a perfect example of that. Here we have examples, and it's also yourselves, and we have other staff as well at Fatima Elizabeth who have done the same. So they've done these part-time Alimiya programs, and Alimiya, basically, just to give you a very basic summary, at the end of, so if you're spending 6 years, 7, 8, 9 years, whatever you're spending, at the end of it, you're able to read the Quran, for instance, within Arabic, but also understand its meaning, also be able to read hadith, be able to navigate through hadith texts, and also texts of fiqh through Arabic. And also people can come and ask you questions. This is for our students. People can come and ask you questions about Islam, and you can either give the answers, or you can go back and you know where to find them. So this is some of the things that we were talking about. Okay, we've got an interesting point before we start the session, and it's from Dr. Yahya. He's saying that I have been looking lately at how Hujjaj looked at the Kaaba, right? So how Hujjaj looked at the Kaaba in the Ottoman period. During their farewell, they kept their gaze, they kept their eyes affixed to the Kaaba until their exit from the Haram. So I think that he just wanted to add this point about the eyes. So Jazakallah for that piece of information. If you would like to comment more on that or ask more questions in terms of the science of that, then you're welcome to do that as well. So Ustada Hajra, as Ustada Aisha just said, that one day you came to the madrasa, or the after school madrasa that we have in the mosques. You came and you said, I'm leaving. Mm-hmm. And there were 4 other girls at the time. They were like, whoa, why is that and how? And then could you kind of replay that, and what did you explain to them? How did you bring them on board the journey that you had started?
Yeah, so it was actually, for me, I was, when I first sort of decided to start on the Alamiya program, it was something that was very scary for me, purely because in our madrasa we had a very close community-like feeling. We were all very, very good friends. And I was really upset to be leaving that behind me and going to this new madrasa. I didn't know anybody. So I was very, very worried about that. And at the time, I told they all asked me, why are you leaving? And I explained to them, there's an Alamiya course that I'm thinking of starting. I'm probably going to start that next week. And so, I'll be leaving. And it was a very sad day. I remember there was lots of tears. We were all very upset. And at the time, during madrasa that day, I didn't, no one had said anything to me about joining. And it was that evening, I think it was Ustada Aisha, she messaged me. And this was on MSN. It was back on the days of MSN. Oh, okay. we were still too young to really have phones or anything like that. So she messaged me on MSN and she said to me, what madrasa is it that you're starting? And I told her, and I was like, well, why are you asking? And she said to me, I'm thinking of joining as well. I've told my mum I want to join as well. And wow. Just in that moment, I remember that moment so fondly. I had so much relief in my heart at the moment, because I thought, one of my best friends is now coming with me as well. And so first it was Ustada Aisha who said she was going to join. And then I think in the next couple of days, Ustada Aisha's older sister, Abida, she also decided that she wanted to join as well. And then within the next couple of days as well, once one of our other friends heard that we were going, she also decided that she wanted to come with us. Ustada Aisha's sister, Abida, one of her friends from school, decided to join with us. So all of a sudden there was a big group of us going to join, and it was so much easier, and it made me really happy that all of my friends are also coming with me, and it was a lot less daunting, and it definitely strengthened our relationship as well. All of us who joined, we now have such a close friendship after all those years, and it was a beautiful thing that they all joined, alhamdulillah.
That's fantastic. I mean, that's I've just got some questions there. I think I'll bring them forward before I ask my questions. Zahra's asking, so there was this request if you could reenact the whole scene, but maybe you could do that in the classroom when we're back after lockdown. Zahra's saying that's nice that you are best friends. You did Al Zahra Madrasa together, and now you teach at FEP together, and you're also in the same class together. Just also coming back to the point, so I think one thing that I am personally taking away from this is one's journey becomes easier when you have the right friends on that journey together. There are, I mean, you can go on a journey on your own as well, become a strong person, but there's so many benefits in going on this journey together. So that's an important and key point. What I'd like to ask you now, and this question goes to both, is so if there's, say, some of our students, some they could be boys or girls, if they want to do this, evening alimiya program, right? What would you say to them? I mean, just say we have we have some students there who are 11, 12, 13. How do they go about it? And when it gets tough, so when they're at university, right? And you've got so many essays and so many, theses and dissertations to plan and write with strict deadlines. And then you also have the evening madrasa, which goes up to from 2 to 3 hours to even weekends. Doesn't it get really challenging? And how did you kind of go beyond that to be where you are now?
So I'll go first, if that's all right, Aisha.
Sure.
So yeah, it was definitely very, very difficult. I think when I first started, I didn't appreciate how many challenges were actually going to come our way. It was a lot more difficult than we kind of thought. There was times, obviously, when we started uni, when we started college, we realized that required a lot of work, but also madrasa required a lot of work. And there was madrasa exam season and school exam season. It all became very difficult at times. But I definitely think that what helped us through was, first of all, having the help of Allah. I think everyone sort of doesn't realize how much that is a thing, but I mainly realized it once we left madrasa and we had all this extra time. For some reason, I don't know how, I still felt like I wasn't getting as much done as I was when I was in madrasa. And I truly believe that was because we had Allah's help with us. Allah would help us get through all of those difficult times together. And I also definitely think, like you mentioned, Ustad, like having the right people by your side, the right friends.
Yeah.
So me, Ustad Aisha, loads of other girls in our class, we all knew we were going through the same thing together, and we would help each other and push each other and really persevere together. And having those friends who are in the exact same position with you it's like nothing else. Your friends at school, of course, they understand you and they can help you, but it's not the same as your friends who are going through that exact same thing as you. And I think that is one reason why me and Ustad Aisha have such a good relationship. We've been through absolutely everything together and we helped each other through those difficult times. So I definitely think having the right friends and encouraging one another is definitely something that got us through it.
And when did you complete your Alimiya program?
I think it's coming up to 2 years ago now. It was about
fantastic.
1.5 years ago. Yeah. So I was
And have you both completed your BSc in optometry?
Yes, we had our last exam yesterday, actually.
Oh wow! So that's it. So this was the right timing for this.
Yeah.
Right, fantastic, mashallah. That's great. So we have students saying congratulations, Ustadas. So that's very good. So you did so can I just ask why you both went for optometry together? The question is, the broader question is, did all 5 of you do optometry together?
No, that wasn't the case. A few of my sister and her friend, they went into pharmacy together. So they were together.
So you were still close by in terms of professions, okay?
Yeah. So then me and Ustad Hajra, I don't know, we just kind of spoke about it, and we just kind of fell into it, I think. We both wore glasses as well, and it was just one of those things. I think we knew we were very science orientated as well. We were interested in the sciences, like in college we'd pick like chemistry, biology, and things like that. So we knew we wanted to go into something that was related to the medical field. And then optometry, alhamdulillah, just kind of fell into place and we got in, and we've completed it now, alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah, that's fantastic. And do you think doing these two things side by side helped you become even more or helped knowledge become more accessible to you, because you're basically going through two different systems. You've got the mainstream secular studies that you're going, where everything's on the PowerPoint, there's lots of activities, there's group work, there's all that stuff going on. And in the Alamiya program, it's pretty much just lecture where the teachers are speaking and you're absorbing all the knowledge and trying to understand it for yourselves. So do you think that helped because you're doing both at the same time? Or do you think you found one easier? I mean, tell me about that experience.
I think so definitely we had to adapt. Of course, it was two very different ways of learning. Just like you said, university compared to madrasa, especially with madrasa, we were like sitting on the floor in a classroom setting, one teacher at the front with our kitabs. So I think what we had to do was kind of find a way in which it worked for us, right? So certain revision techniques that we would pick up from university, note taking we would pick up from university, would kind of incorporate that and implement that in madrasa, memorization techniques and things like that. And it was lovely because we would all like kind of share it with each other. So things would work for somebody and we'd try it out and it would work for us, and vice versa, it wouldn't work for others and it would work for some other people. So we definitely did have to adapt. I think it did take a while as well. There was a lot of chopping and changing, figuring out what works and what doesn't. But I think in the long run, even now, I think we've all kind of figured out what works for us and kind of adapt it into different settings and different environments.
That's very interesting. It's very, very interesting. Was there anything that you took from the madrasa or Darul Uloom pedagogy and then applied it to your learning at university?
Yes, so I definitely think I did. I think because sometimes madrasas, particularly the madrasa we went to, they taught in a very traditional way in the sense that sometimes it was 3 hours on the same book, and there was it was reading, lecturing, that kind of stuff, and I think that definitely helped us sort of build our attention span. Our sort of concentration became stronger because we became used to for long periods of time sitting and learning.
Yep.
So by the time we got to university, it was a lot easier for us to sort of sit in a 1 hour lecture, just one person speaking at us. It was something we were somewhat used to in a way, even though they were completely different topics. It's something that was quite familiar to us.
That's actually an interesting point, because when you go to universities and you go to these educational institutes, they do this test to find out whether you're a visual, kinesthetic, or auditory learner. And most people are kinesthetic or visual. So what in effect is happening is, by going to this alternative kind of method of learning, going from kinesthetic and visual, you kind of became auditory learners as well. So that's one of the key benefits that you're getting from the Darul Uloom or the Dars al-Nizami mode of teaching, which is quite interesting actually. MashaAllah, that's fantastic. So is there anything else you would like to mention about your journey that you think would benefit students? So for example, what would you say, Ustadha Hajra? Just say all the students that are watching there, all the girls, all the boys, and they have a choice, they're going to continue their secondary school, come home, play games, and keep on doing that. I mean, how much is that going to benefit them in long term? How would you suggest that they should do both? Because remember, in where we live here in Walthamstow, or broadly Waltham Forest, we do have evening what do you call it, evening Alamiya program. So we have the Al Zahra Madrasa where you attended. That's in Walthamstow. It's actually literally, I think, a 4 or 5 minute walk from my house. It's about a 30-second bike ride from where I am. But then we also have further down the Lantern of Knowledge, which is again also an evening the Alamiya program. Again, for those who want to continue their careers in the professional world, but at the same time become alims or alimas. How would you maybe give them the benefits of doing both?
So I would definitely say it is something that you should 100% jump into. I think a lot of people are in the habit of, once you get to a certain age, maybe starting, maybe a few years into secondary school, it's sort of become the norm that you leave madrasa and you focus on your secular studies, school, college, whatever it is. But maybe not, it depends on what level you're at. Some people don't want to commit to maybe a 7-year course like the Alamiya program was, but there's so many other options out there. And I think it's definitely something you should look into. It's somewhere where you will continue your Islamic knowledge, which, there's so much to learn and it is so, so interesting and you will absolutely love it. It's also somewhere where you'll make, some of your lifelong friends. And these are relationships that you really, really want to have, because these can be your best friends, and that's where you can meet them as well. And it's definitely something that will help you as well. Allah's help will be on your side. You really have to think of it like that. Some people think that, oh, you know, I don't have the time, but you really do. You know, everyone can make the time for it, and Allah will definitely help you, and He will be on your side, and it will be something that will be a great blessing to you all.
Absolutely. Yeah. Ustad Aisha, would you like to add anything to that from your perspective?
I think she's pretty much covered everything in a nutshell, so she's done an amazing job. But no, I think just one thing for us as well was I think, you know, madrasa itself wasn't just going somewhere to learn. It was the environment of madrasa, because what it was during the day we were you know, in the wide world, big wide world, you could say, right, experiencing so many different things. And then at the end of the day, in the evening, we knew that at 5 o'clock we have to be in madrasa, whether we like it or not. And we know that the rest of our classmates were going through the same thing. So it was kind of like a safe place for us. We'd come to madrasa at 5 o'clock, and we'd be in this environment and in this surrounding where everybody was there to learn. You know, everybody was there with their kitabs and with their books, ready to study the deen. And alhamdulillah, we had amazing teachers which kind of really instilled that love of Islam for us in our hearts as well. That understanding that that Islam is so much more than just sitting and studying a kitab. You know, it's much more, whereby it's the environment that you create, it's the love that you have for the deen. So I think that was something that was really beneficial for us as well. And of course, along the way, we had so much criticism from a lot of people, right? And we kind of pretty much got used to that. You know, it was like, because obviously there are full-time madrasas as well where people attend during the day, and obviously
when you're saying criticism, could you tell me what you mean by that? I mean, criticism in what regards?
Yes, so yeah, just like I was saying, so there were of course there were madrasas where they do full-time, right? So during the day, like a 9 to 4:30 or something, and of course we'd study that same amount within about 3-4 hours during the evening. So it was like, you know, the criticism in terms of you're not really studying in depth what you're supposed to be learning. But I think for us, it was so much more than just kind of sitting down and getting through the books. It was more a lifestyle for us. It was an environment for us where we knew that at the end of the day, coming to madrasa was what kept us sane and what kept us grounded on the deen. So that was more what it was for us.
That's fascinating stuff, Ustaz. And we are going to start the lesson, but we are going to cut it short. But just to mention that, for our students especially who are thinking, what's all this talk about madrasas and darul ulooms, right? So just to give you a very quick idea, and then just to kind of summarize on this, and then we're going to move on to the actual lesson, is first of all, we have all of you guys, right? All the children, you go to a place after school, normally during the weekdays or on weekend, where you learn the very basics about Islam, right? So yes, so that is, you can call that a madrasa or a maktab, you know, after school, supplementary school or after school, whatever. That's on one side. Where what we are talking about and we have been talking about is actually the Darul Ulooms, right? Or some people call them madrasas as well, right? Some call them Islamic seminaries. It's where people go to become alims or alimas. Now in Britain, we have this wonderful situation where we have, you can say like 2, 3, 4, 5 different types of these Darul Ulooms. One is the hardcore, full time, where people actually leave their homes and they go all the way far away from homes, and they leave their homes for like 8-9 years. Obviously they do come back and forth every few months for a couple of days, and then they actually board there as well. So that's what I did, right? I left home, I was there for about 8 years and made very good friends, very good friends. But what happens is when you go to a full-time madrasa, when you come back to your own areas, you realize that you're all far apart now. So the kind of relationship with Sada Aisha, Sada Hajra and their friends would have, and that bond, you won't have, because, and if you've noticed from some of our previous sessions, I've brought on my friends, one who lives in Trinidad and Tobago, one's in Qatar, one's in Birmingham. I mean, people living all over the world, so you don't have anyone there. So when you do come back, you sometimes feel that there's something missing. And I don't think phones and social media does any kind of justice to having friends close by does. So that's one type, right? And then we have the type where you have the same full-time, but you don't board, but you're just doing the Alamiya program. So you're going home every day, right? And then you have what's this new interesting scenario where you go to school or college or university, whichever, wherever you are in your life, during the morning up until the afternoon. And then after that, around 5 o'clock, you go and do the Alamiya program, right? And I find this segment of the Alamiya very, very interesting. extremely interesting, because now you have graduates who are not just graduates of the Alamiya program, but they're also professionals. And we want to see what happens with these individuals in the coming decade or so, and see how that may change the scene of Islam in Britain. Right, so that sounds quite interesting, actually. So this is what I was talking about. Very few things before we move on. Could you please mention where in Walthamstow you did? So I've done that. It's at the Al Zahra Madrasa. I think even if you Google it, you'll be able to find it. I don't know if you know Mufti Hilal from our madrasa. His father, Maulana Bilal, he is the one who started the evening classes for girls a very long time ago. I think it's at least 20 odd years ago that he started, or even longer than that. And it's a great honor to have that in Walthamstow, to be honest. Okay, so Dr. Yahya is back with another question of the eyes. He's saying, I was making a wider point about connection of the eyes to religious emotion, especially in the context of Hajj. Jazakallah for that, Dr. Yahya. So I think Dr. Yahya is coming from the spiritual aspect of the eyes. We will move on to the physical as well, or the scientific. Okay, Juria is saying congratulations, Ustadas, and also we have Adam Gardner, who is saying this is an interesting discussion. And for those of you who don't know Adam Gardner, it is Mufti Hilal on YouTube, hiding his name. Okay, so let's move on now, Ustada. Let's see with the lesson. So I know the lessons about Shukr, but also we plugged in the eyes because you're both optometrists as well. So if we can kind of have a summary of the session in terms of why the eyes, what's so special about the eyes? Why should we do Shukr about them? Why should we, and Shukr meaning thanking Allah, and how do we do that? So if you can, give that to us, inshallah.
Yeah, sure. So I actually taught this lesson, I think, to some of the previous children on Sunday. It was a bit more in depth, but just like in the interest of time, just kind of in summary and kind of whiz through it. So kind of what we wanted to start off with was just talking about what Shukr is and how we can relate it to the eye. So Shukr itself, the literal meaning of the word, if you don't think about it in a context, it means to make your blessings apparent. So these blessings that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given you, it's to make them apparent. It's to make them known that these blessings have been given to you. And if you think about it kind of in the context and in like an overall definition, and as most people know, the meaning of Shukr is to be grateful and to be thankful for what Allah has given you. Now, I think it's very important, and I just wanted to mention this very briefly, that so we know the literal meaning of the word Shukr is to make your blessings apparent. Now, the opposite of the word Shukr is kufr, which means to be ungrateful, right? And the word kufr or kafir, or however you want to say it, is I think a word that is very commonly used, has very many different definitions depending on in which context that you use them. And I think it's it's a word that, especially in today's 21st century,
is that the ice cream van, Ustada?
Yeah.
Is that okay? Okay.
The ice cream.
Oh, yeah, there you go. Yep.
So yeah, so I think it's telling me to get some ice cream.
Yeah.
But no, yeah. So I think what I briefly wanted to say was just so the word Shukr in terms so the word kufr, sorry. So direct opposite of the word Shukr is kufr, and it doesn't necessarily relate to the word kufr in terms of iman. It means kufr in terms of like ungrateful. So in like one of the surahs of the Quran, Surah Al-Baqarah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, washkuru li wa la takfurun, be grateful to me and don't be ungrateful to me, right? So it's talking more about that kind of kufr. So kufr itself, if you think about the meaning of the word kufr, it means to hide something, right? So in a way we said Shukr is to make your blessings apparent. Kufr, to be ungrateful, is to hide these blessings that Allah has given you, so to be ungrateful, right? So there's 3 levels or 3 ways in which you can kind of show gratitude and to be grateful. So very briefly, in a nutshell, we've got Shukr of the heart. So I've written to acknowledge the blessing. So this is a very inward form of gratitude. And they say it's kind of like the lowest form of gratitude. So it's acknowledging it. Nobody else can kind of see that you've done this except for yourself and for Allah, of course. So if I give you an example, if you were given a book, somebody has given you a book as a gift, right? So you've taken the book, and in your heart, you've acknowledged that I've got this book, right? So you've done Shukr in your heart, but you haven't said anything. The person doesn't know that you're being grateful. You just kind of take the book in your heart. You think, okay, you know, I'm grateful, and then you walk away, right? And to be fair, if we think about it in our lives, and especially in today's day and age and what's going on at the moment with the pandemic, with our health, right? We never really say that Alhamdulillah for our health, right? It's something that of course we're appreciative of and we're grateful of, but it's never something that we kind of vocalize and verbalize as well, right? So then we move on to the next form of shukr, which is shukr of the tongue, right? So by verbally thanking, so if we use the example of the book, so someone gives you a book and then you physically say, you verbally say, thank you very much for the book, I very much appreciate it. And there's actually a hadith as well that's mentioned where it says, "Man la yashkuru nas, lan yashkuru Allah." So whoever is not thankful to people is not thankful to Allah, right? So one way of thanking Allah through that, you can say, is by thanking people, because Allah has sent that person to you for you to be thankful to him through that person, right? So the bare minimum, I think, we should at least be thankful with our tongues, and I think a lot of us do, right? When we wake up in the morning, we read the dua, Alhamdulillah alladhi ahyana, Allah, we thank you, we praise you for giving us life. After we eat, Alhamdulillah alladhi at'amana, right? We thank you for what you have fed us, for what you have given us to eat. So through dua is a perfect way to do shukr of the tongue. And then the final form of shukr is shukr of the limbs. And I think that's where we kind of relate the eye into, right? So through your actions. And this is kind of like the highest level of shukr, as you can say. So basically using your limbs to do actions to show that you are appreciative of what Allah has given you. And the perfect example we have is the eye, right? So we have the eyes, and how can we use the eyes to do shukr? By using our eyes to worship Allah, whatever it is that we may be, whatever it is that we do. When we're in madrasa, for example, the students that are on here, you're in madrasa, you're using your eyes to study the qaida, the tajweed, looking at the lesson, looking at each other, looking at your teacher. These are all ways that we can use our eyes to worship Allah. And I kind of wanted to look at shukr in a different way in terms of the eye, very briefly, by going over the anatomy or the structure of just some parts of the eye, and then we can kind of talk about the relevance after.
So yeah, because me and Ustad Aisha spent so many years learning about the eye, we thought we'd tell you guys a little bit about it as well, inshallah, and just sort of open your eyes as to how much there is within the eye and how complicated.
I like what you did there. So you said open your eyes to what
I realized it after I did it. Yeah, so we do have different aspects of the eye. So the picture we've got on the screen here is probably familiar to you all. You know, all of our eyes look a little bit like this. Maybe the colored bit is different for us, but this normal structure of the eye is like this. So if we start from the middle, the black part, that's called the pupil. And a lot of people already know that. That's something that's quite commonly known. And the pupil is quite interesting, actually, because you may have noticed it can actually change size, which is amazing. So for example, if you put your eyes in really, really bright light, as a defense mechanism, your pupils automatically go really, really small. So not too much light gets in and damages your eyes. But for example, if you're in a darker setting, maybe it's a little bit, maybe the lights are off, your pupils naturally go larger so that more light can be taken in and you can see more, even though it's dark. So that's the amazing thing about the pupil. Then outside of the pupil, we've got the colored bits. Now this is called the iris. And everybody has, you know, different colors of eyes. You've got brown, green, blue, you've got loads of different colors of eyes. And that is something that is a beautiful thing as well, you know, that Allah has made us different from something like the colored part of your eye, the iris. Outside of the iris, you then have the white parts of your eyes, which we call the sclera. So all of these parts of your eyes actually have very technical names, and there's very, you know, each part does a different thing for you, which is amazing to think about. Another part of the eye is the little red bit in the corner that we have, and that's called the tear duct. And one of the things that me and Ustad Aisha were discussing actually is how, you know, your eyes are actually connected to different parts of your body, and how if something happens in, you know, one part of your body, it can show in the eyes. And, you know, the tear duct is actually directly connected to your nose, which is why, you know, sometimes when you cry, you know, your eyes are tearing up, sometimes your nose runs as well, which is showing how it is all connected and how Allah has made us in such a special way that, you know, one thing can connect to another, can lead to another, and it is all, you know, built together. The last part we want to talk about the front of the eye, sorry, there you go, is actually the conjunctiva. So that's a bit of a longer word. And what that is, it's a bit like a film across all of your eye, which covers your eye, and it actually protects it. So obviously your eyes are something that really needs to be protected. Sometimes when something goes in, you feel, you know, pain all of a sudden. And we don't want this to get deeper than it needs to. So the conjunctiva is a good protector of your eye overall. There we go. Yeah, and I think Ustada Aisha is going to go through some of the actual different layers in the eye when you actually go behind the front surface.
Yeah, so this is what they call a sagittal section of the eye. So if you were to cut me in half and you were to look at my eye from standing over here, this is what you would see just behind the front surface of the eye. So this is the front surface. We have the lens, which acts a bit like a camera lens as well. So what it does is, as you look out into the distance and as you look at something far, something near, sorry, your lens actually will change shape in order to accommodate and to allow your vision to focus in different areas. And something that is very interesting actually is you'll see that as you, maybe your parents, or as you get a little bit older, you'll see that things that you hold, sometimes you'll see people kind of pulling them a little bit further away to try and read them, for example, like their phones, or they might increase the font as well. This is basically why, because the lens over the years and as you grow older, what it's made of, the structures of the lens kind of are not as efficient as they are as when you were younger. So what you need is like reading glasses to kind of improve the mechanism of the eye and the lens so that you can see things that you're reading up close a little bit clearer. If we look at some other structures such as the vitreous humor, which sticks kind of like your eyeball to the back of your eye as well. We have the retina, which is probably one of the most important structures of the eye. We have the choroid over here, which supplies blood and nutrients to the back surface of the eye as well. And then we have the optic nerve, and this is what connects your eye all the way to your brain as well. So that's just
so why is it called humor?
Why is it called humor?
That is a good question. I actually don't know. Why is it called humor? That's something we definitely need to research, I think.
Yeah, cool. Maybe you could do your master's thesis on that, just that one point.
We could do.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. And now
that's interesting, because we always get to see that picture of our own eyeballs when we go to the opticians.
Yes,
and they all look the same though. They don't look different.
Yeah. So this is the back surface of the eye. So all the way, if you go to the back, we get this surface, which is called the retina. And yeah, so that's it. Yeah, so just over there that we were talking about. So what this does is, this is sort of where all images, what you look at with your real eyes, this is where it all gets projected to back onto your retina. And so it looks quite complicated, actually. It's not something that you see every day. But me and Ustada Aisha, as optometrists, what we will be doing is actually looking at looking at the retina of people's eyes. And the way we do this is we get a little lens sometimes, and we hold it in front of the patient's eyes, and we look through certain machines, and we actually see all the way back here. Or we have a little, it might have happened to you when you go to the optometrist, we have a little, what we call an ophthalmoscope. It's a little machine, and we take it right up close to the patient, and we can see all the way to the back. And this is really good in terms of telling us how your health is. So like Ustad Hamid said, everybody's looks exactly the same. However, if there is actually something wrong, so certain diseases, which we'll go on to, like these, they look a little bit different. So for example, in this picture on the left-hand side, we can see that there's some sort of yellow bits in the middle, little specks, and there's also these red bits over there. So that means that something has gone a little bit wrong. And that's when me and Ustada Aisha as optometrists would, that would raise a flag for us, and we'd say, oh, okay, what's going on here? So on the left-hand side, what we actually have is something called diabetic retinopathy. Now, what that happens in people who actually have diabetes. And so it's crazy to think that something that's, so internal in your body, diabetes, that's something that happens, down in your pancreas, your liver, that sort of stuff, it can show in your eyes. And it's amazing how Allah has made those connections so that even if, you haven't gone to the doctors, you haven't, your diabetes hasn't been picked up or something, maybe an eye test could pick that up. And it's amazing how that happens. And Ustada Aisha, do you want to talk about the papilledema on the right?
Yeah, sure.
So just to add to what Ustada Hajra is saying, so what you're trying to say to the students is, when you go to the shops, keep an eye out on the sweets that you're buying, because it could have an impact on the way you see in the future.
Exactly. Yeah. You do not want your eyes to get to this stage, because it will affect your vision. Definitely. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. So the picture on the right, so like you said before, was you think that everybody's retina is exactly the same. Now, if we look at this retina over here and we look at something called the optic disc, right? This is actually the optic disc of a patient who is having problems and issues with their brain. Right, so this is somebody who the pressure in the brain has kind of increased quite a bit, which is showing in their eyes. And this is something that a patient won't be able to to recognize or know. They might say, oh, I've got a little bit of a headache, come in for an eye test, and through the eye test we'll be able to see that, hang on, this is kind of something that's a very big emergency, and they need to be sent to the hospital straight away. That needs to be seen pretty much as an emergency, right? Within 24 hours they need to be seen, or they could actually lose their vision, right?
Wow.
So other diseases as well, such as tumors in the brain, can also be detected in your eye as well. Other diseases such as high blood pressure, cholesterol, they can all be picked up by your eye. And I think what we were trying to promote or even plug is sometimes a lot of people are under the misconception that, oh, because I can see clearly, my vision is fine or my eyes are fine. And I think we're here to kind of say that, of course, that probably is the case, but another main reason or importance is why you need to have your eyes checked is for the health of your eye. These people that come in, they don't know that they've got health problems with them. So by having an eye test and by having regular checkups at your optometrist, be it 1 year, be it 2 years, we can detect if there's actually something else going on in the body, which would need special attention and special care as well.
Yes, and that's why I think with diabetics, they have to have a yearly or annual screening checkup as well, which is quite important as well. There's some questions here. Can we take some questions? Zahra is saying it's really interesting that you can see diabetes from your eye. Wow. Have you ever detected something bad, Ustadas, from your and whether you're allowed to discuss it, maybe without, I don't know, too many details. Oh, and an interesting thing is, like sometimes when friends get together, they talk about things. Do you get together and talk about the kind of eyes that you saw and the kind of problems that are out there in the ummah in terms of the eyes?
We do a lot, especially through university. I feel like, so in our 3rd year of university, we would actually see patients in our clinic at university, and so we'd see real patients, who'd come in off of the street wanting an eye test, and because we were still learning, a lot of the stuff we'd see, we'd be like, oh gosh, what's that, we need help. And so it was definitely something throughout university that we would talk about all the time. I saw this with my patient, I saw that with my patient, and it would help us learn from one another. Zara had asked if we had actually seen anything ourselves or picked up anything. I haven't actually picked up anything myself. In uni, we had done very few eye tests. We've done about 20 altogether, I would say. All of those were mainly healthy. I had a few patients who in the past had some problems, and therefore I could see that sort of stuff in their eye. But it wasn't me who was detecting them. It had already been detected at a previous eye test. And when they came, they said, oh, last time I was at the opticians, they told me I have this, so look out for that. And so I already knew to look out for it. How about you, Aisha?
No, so same with myself. I haven't myself actually detected or picked up anything. It's all been just like Ustad Hajra said. We do hear stories, of course, of our colleagues and our friends who have actually detected and picked up things themselves, and they tell us, and we all get really fascinated. And I think it's a big learning experience for all of us as well. That, say Ustad Hajra was to see something, she'll tell me, I'd kind of be like, okay. And you learn through other people's experiences as well, and they kind of ingrained in your mind as well. And I think one thing it's important to know is, of course, eye diseases are out there. It's not as common as people think. So it's not every person off the street has something wrong with them. Majority of the time, alhamdulillah, people's eyes are very healthy. But it is our job as optometrists in the future, inshallah, when there is something that goes wrong, we are kind of like the first port of call, the first screening program to detect it. And there was actually a case, very briefly, I'll talk about, which has been told to us and has kind of scared us quite a little bit. There was an optometrist about 2 years ago. There was a young child, and he actually had a brain tumor, very young, about 6-7 years old. And just like we said, you can pick these things up through the eye. And this child went to see the optometrist, but on that specific day, the optometrist, I don't know what was going on, but she didn't pick it up. Although it was there, she didn't see it clearly, or she didn't pick it up. And it so happened that a few days later, the child passed away. And of course, a huge court case happened. And it turns out the lady, the optometrist that was actually assessing the boy's eye, she ended up being struck off the register. So she's no longer an optometrist. She was actually sentenced to prison, because essentially it was like manslaughter, right? Because of her, they said, the boy passed away. So of course it is very rigorous training that we do go through. We do have, like, I guess you could say, like optometry police, where we do have to kind of answer to, and we have guidelines that we have to follow to ensure the safety of patients and the people that we do see as well.
And Jazakallah for mentioning that story, because it also tells us that that health and life is such an important thing. And we're glad that, they are putting so much, mechanisms in place to ensure that everyone's eyes are checked thoroughly before things get bad and worse. And I think it's a good thing in terms of health that there's, like as you mentioned, the eye police that are out there, which is good, alhamdulillah. Okay, so just a quick question, Hussein. There's two things. Hussein is asking, can normal headaches affect your eyes? And then after that, there's this request for the story of the three men. Okay, so you want to answer Hussein's question on, can normal headaches affect your eyes?
So with the headaches won't actually affect your eyes, but sometimes the headaches are caused because of your eyes. So sometimes people need a pair of glasses, but they don't actually realize it. And what happens is their eyes end up, especially young kids, actually, it happens to a lot. So their eyes end up working extra more than they actually need to be working just to be able to make things clear. And what that does, because your eyes are working so hard, it sometimes causes headaches. So sometimes a lot of people do come into the optometrist saying, oh, I'm getting lots of headaches when I'm reading or when I'm using the computer. And sometimes it's that they need glasses. So I don't think the headaches will actually affect your eyes, but sometimes your eyes can be the cause of the headache. Yeah.
Yep. Jazakallah. Any more questions from students before we wrap up with the story of the three men, which quite a few students have actually. I think it's students from your class that have probably heard the story already.
Yeah, so I think I didn't get a chance to, when I was teaching on Sunday, the lesson went by so fast, I didn't get a chance to mention the story. So I said, hopefully if we get a chance.
Yep, absolutely, inshallah. Even though it is 6 o'clock, but I think we do have time for that story if you want. And in the meantime, if there's any questions, we can answer them straight at the end, if that's okay.
Sure. So I think just very briefly, I guess,
yep, sure.
Upload the PowerPoint as well so you can have a read of it in your own time. But the main reason why we wanted to mention the eyes and Shukr, how it was connected, was that we have so much to be grateful for in this world. And I think we're very used to saying, oh, I'm grateful to be able to see, I'm grateful to be able to hear, but I don't think we really and truly understand how intricately designed or how well designed our body is and how Allah has designed it. So in the same way, there's so much we wanted to give you just a brief overview of the eye. We have so many different organs in the body, the liver, the brain, the stomach, just got a picture here. And those other organs in the body have been designed in a much more intricate and detailed way as well. So alhamdulillah, we have a lot to be grateful for. So the story of the three men, very briefly.
Before you do that, Sada, Zahra is saying, why does a person's eyes go red?
So there's many reasons as to why a person's eye can go red. It can be something from as simple as excessive use of the computer, right, reduced blinking, which can cause your eyes to become a little bit more red. And it can even be on the opposite spectrum where you have a certain eye disease. So what we would do in that situation, for someone was to come in and say, I've got a red eye, would kind of determine the cause. Could be an infection, could be something just like we said, as simple as using the computer too often, dry eyes and things like that. So there's a variety of causes that can cause red eye.
Cool, fantastic.
So just very briefly, the story of the three men, and kind of related to eyes, is a story that's been mentioned in hadith of three men. So there were three men, and so one was a leper. So leper meaning he had a bit of a skin condition. One was a bald man, and one was a blind man. And Allah decided that I want to test these three men. So what he did is he sent an angel, and what the angel did is he came to the leper. And he asked the leper, what is it that you want the most? Tell me what it is that you want, and I'll be able to give it to you. And the leper said, I want a good color, a good skin, and what makes me loathsome to people. So he's basically indicating that maybe he was being made fun of because of his condition or because of his skin. So he was asking to be cured of that. So the angel, what he did is he rubbed his hand, and pretty much everything that he wanted became true. So he had good skin, alhamdulillah. So then the angel said to him, okay, what type of property is it that you want? What is it that you want? And then the leper said, I want a camel, right? And we have to understand that back in the day, camel was something that they used to travel on, that they used to kind of make their money on. So that's kind of like the equivalent of saying, okay, I want a car, or I want a shop, or something that you can kind of make it into your business. So what the angel did is he granted the man a pregnant she-camel, so that what would happen is the camel would give birth, and then there would be a wide flock and a huge range of camels. Then the angel went over to the blind man and said the exact same thing. What is it that you want? And then the bald man said, I want good hair and to be rid of what makes me loathsome to people. And the angel, alhamdulillah, was able to do the exact same, kind of put his hand over his head, and he was no longer bald. And then the angel asked him, what is it that you want? And then he said that I want a cow. So he was given a pregnant cow. And then the angel went to the third person, who was a blind man, and he asked him, what is it that you want? And then the man said, I wish that Allah restores my eyesight. So I wish that I'll be able to see, so that I can see people. Right? So the angel ran his hand over him and his eyesight was restored. So this was, of course, a miracle. And then the angel said to him, what is it that you want? And he said that he would like a sheep. So he was given a pregnant ewe, which is basically a sheep. So of course these animals gave birth, and there were lots of flocks and lots of herds of these animals. And this is where their test came in. So what then happened is the angel came to the man who was formerly a leper, and the angel actually came in the form of a leper. So he was as though what the man previously had. And he said to the man, and he said, I'm a poor person. I'm on a journey. I don't have anything to get home. Please, can you give me one of your animals so that I can go home? And this man said, sorry, I've got bills to pay. I've got things to do. I can't give you anything. Right? So then this angel, which was disguised as a human, as a leper, said, hang on, were you not that person who once upon a time was a leper, who pretty much didn't have much, and now you've been given all these riches? And this man said, nope, I have no idea what you're talking about. All these things that I have been passed down to me via inheritance, so through my family. That is how I have all of this. And then the angel actually ended up saying that if you're telling a lie, then I pray that Allah returns you back to how you were, right? So this was a test for this man. So of course he was given a lot, and Allah wanted to test him, and Allah wanted him to realize that you need to be grateful for what you have, right? But of course he wasn't grateful, and he ended up losing what he had, and he was returned back to his former self, so back into the form of a leper. The same thing happened to the second man, so the bold man. The angel went to him and said the same thing. Please, I'm really poor. I need to get home. Please, can you give me one of your produce? And the man said the same thing, and the same thing happened to that man. He was returned back to what he was before. And then the angel went to the third person, so the man who was formerly blind, and he said, I'm a poor person. I'm on a journey. Please, can you give me something, a sheep or something that you have that I can get home? And this man said, yes, I was blind. Once upon a time, I was blind. Allah then restored my eyesight. Allah gave me eyesight. Allah gave me the ability to see. So whatever it is that I have, take whatever it is that you want, because this was all from Allah, and it is through Allah's mercy and his blessings that I have been given this. And this angel then said, it's okay, you keep whatever it is that you have. We've actually just tested you, and Allah is pleased with you, and Allah is not pleased with the two other men, right? So there's just a few lessons, and kind of we wanted to relate this to Shukr, that things that you have in this world that Allah has given you, it's super, super important to be grateful for what it is that you have. And we mentioned previously the three kind of forms of Shukr, so Shukr of the heart, the tongue, and your limbs, right? So it's important to kind of be grateful for what it is that you have, and acknowledge that this is from Allah. And to always remember that Allah doesn't always test you through difficulty. Allah doesn't test you always when you don't have anything. Allah can test you through wealth. Allah can test you through money, through children, through jobs, through family, whatever it is. Allah can test you in multiple ways. And I guess the final kind of point that I wanted to mention is to kind of be watchful and aware that Allah is always watching, right? So there's two men at the beginning who said, no, hang on, I got all of this because through my family, right? Nobody in the area knew, but Allah knew, and Allah knew that, no, that's not how it happened. I gave this to you. So it's the importance of knowing that although people might not know the truth, Allah always knows the truth. And just kind of a final point, one dua that's been mentioned in hadith, one dua, there's multiple things that you can say, but one dua that you can mention to be grateful is Allahumma laka alhamdu wa laka shukru. Allah, to you belongs all praise, and to you belongs all thanks. And we just kind of have some optional homework if it is something that you wanted to do. So I guess number one, I've written things that you are grateful for, but you don't even have to write a list of everything, because I think that list would be super long and you'd never really be able to be grateful or write everything that you are thankful for. So even if it's just 5 things, right? 5 things that you are grateful for, and more importantly, why are you grateful for them, right? So whether it's your eyes, whatever it is, your family, why are you grateful for them? And just like an extension piece of work, if you do have a bit of extra time, you can pick any prophet of your choice, whether it's Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Prophet Sulaiman, whoever it is, Yusuf alayhi salam. They've all shown acts of gratefulness and gratitude in their lives. So if you wanted to research an incident in their lives, then you are free to do that as well. And that's kind of the end.
Yes, Jazakallah for that. And I think it's important that you raised the whole thing about shukr, because alhamdulillah, if we look back at 2 months ago, 3 months ago, when this whole lockdown thing happened and we all just started finding out about the coronavirus, there was a bit more of a chaos, and understandably so, because we were not so much aware of what it was. Now alhamdulillah, things have cooled down. Lockdown is easing step by step, and what we don't want is to forget what Allah has given us, and what we don't want to do is forget this period that came upon us. And we need to look back on this and think about this as well, and definitely ask Allah for forgiveness as well, but at the same time thank Allah for everything that He's given us. Before we started our online madrasa, we had so many people who were alive with us. Right now, many of them have passed away. I mean, I've been to a few janazas myself with social distancing from grandparents of of our madrasa. So there were many at the start, but they are no longer with us today. We've got to remember that these past 3 months should be an example for our lives in general, that we all have to go to the next world. I mean, this is not here for, we're not here forever and ever. We are going to move on to the next life. And the important question is, what are we doing now? What are we doing now that is having an impact for us in the hereafter? But also, what kind of legacy are we leaving behind us? And when we say legacy, we don't need to think about people like I don't know, Salahuddin or Nelson Mandela. We don't need to think that far. We can leave a legacy for just our family. We can leave a legacy for the people around us. We don't have to think that large and big. If we do, that's even better. But we need to leave something. We need to leave this world, or our world, in a state better than it was before. And I think that's a mission that all of us should have. And coming back to this session, Jazakallah for not only the lesson, but I think more so from the lesson is the inspiration that you bring with yourself, both of you, in terms of being alimas as well, and also in your professional careers. It's very easy to say, but how difficult the past decade would have been doing both things side by side. Some people find just doing university in itself very challenging, very difficult. Some people find just schooling very difficult. I mean, try add a whole, so just to let the students know who haven't done Alamiya, it's like doing school 2 times in a day. Let's put it that way, right? And the one that you do in the evening is actually harder than the morning, because it's more text-based. It's more, you really need to be awake. Let's put it that way. So that's key thing that I wanted to mention. And we are going to wrap up now, inshallah. I'm just going to look at the YouTube. Mufti Hilal is saying, لَإِن شَكَرْتُمْ لَأَزِيدَنَّكُمْ. Absolutely. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, if you thank Allah, Allah will definitely increase you in barakah, in wealth, and everything that you're thanking Allah for. It's very easy. It's just moving of your tongue and your lips. You thank Allah. Right. Let's come on to Zoom. Let's try and bypass all the discussions students are having amongst them. Well, there's quite a lot. So just the general Jazakallah students for saying, fantastic lesson, learned so many new things. Some people so Dania is saying some people died in her family. So that's very, very sad, Dania. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give them Jannat al-Firdaus, inshallah. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give you, sabr, and make it easy for your family as well. Zahra is saying, wow, that was an amazing session, Ustada Aisha and Ustada Hajra. I have missed you two so much, and I'm grateful for you coming to talk for an hour. Actually, it's been over an hour. It's an hour and 15 minutes, hour and a quarter. This session was very informative, and I learned a lot. Jazakallah. So true, Salhamid. And we've got lots of Jazakallahs from Fiz Brahim. Thanks for the lessons from Dania, Zahra as well. Hope to see you again at FEP. So you've got all these comments coming in from all the students. Oh, and Ustada Hajira has disappeared. So maybe something happened to her internet or something like that. A few more things from YouTube. May Allah allow us to fulfill His rights and thank Him appropriately. That's from Adam Gardner. Side point, my hat is made by the company Shukr. And then Adam Gardner has done a, forgot what that sign is called. When the kids used to do that.
Oh, yeah. I forgot what it's called as well.
So he's done that. So Jazakallah for that, Mufti Hilal. So maybe you can do a lesson on that as well. So Jazakallah. So I'd like to take this opportunity to say Jazakallah to Ustada Aisha for preparing this lesson. And it's not easy going live in front of so many people, talking about your experiences and also teaching as well. So Jazakallah for the courage that you've shown, Ustad Aisha. And also to Ustada Hajra, who has disappeared. She might be here with us somewhere. Nope. So Ustada Hajra, when you watch this, Jazakallah for doing that as well. And we will stop our lesson here. Subhanallah wa bihamdihi, subhanakallahumma wa bihamdik, ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk.
Jazakallah khair for having us on. And I hope everybody enjoyed the lesson. Assalamu alaikum.
Jazakallah.